Dr. Akins, thanks for joining us. So glad,
No problem.
so glad that you're part of this. It's 5:31, so I suggest that we get started. We have a good group of attendees here. Right now, it's 25 attendees, and just to explain to everybody, this is a special Zoom event where we can allow a lot of people to come in. We actually upgraded our account to provide for more access, so we can have more people. We are the way the evening is going to go. We're going to start by first. I'm just going to give an overview of what tonight's info session will be about, and we'll introduce the action committee that we'll be working with, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Greg Vincent, Dr. Roger Cleveland, and Dr. Roz Akins, and they're going to take us through how they're going to be working with Paducah schools in this racial equity initiative. And so I'm really excited about our partnership here. So at the end, we're going to have time for questions, which we'll do through the chat box. When we get to the end, you can send a chat to all the panelists, and we can address as many questions as we can here tonight. So again, the format tonight, pretty simple. First, we're going to just talk through the committee. I'm actually going to put up I'm going to share my screen so people can, let's see here. And actually, we have a lot of committee members on this call, but this is the Paducah Schools Racial Equity Initiative Action Committee members. We actually got some input from Dr. Vincent and Dr. Cleveland on a good process for selecting a committee to work with them on this equity initiative. And these are the members. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit of the committee, and you can see we'll probably post this on Facebook here after this meeting is over. But what we tried to do is to have a diverse group of community members who have different roles in the community. We even have 2 students from Paducah Tillman on this list, and we're really happy to welcome them, Dana Hernandez and Jacoby Isbell. And so we also have an ex officio member, Teresa Spann, who chairs our staff diversity committee. And so we wanted her to be able to just be aware of how the audit is going, what the committee members are discussing. And so there are going to be plenty of opportunities moving forward for other people in the community to get involved in this process. This is just the beginning of what I expect to be a fairly long and ongoing process. So there should be plenty of opportunity to be part of this if you're interested. All right, and so now I want to introduce our experts who are really here to help us make Paducah schools a more equitable school district. And I want to start with Dr. Greg Vincent. Dr. Vincent is a national expert on civil rights, social justice, and campus culture. He served as Vice President for Diversity and Community Engagement at University of Texas at Austin. He was the 48th Grandsire Archon of Sigma Pi Phi fraternity. He also served as the president of both Hobart College and William Smith College. Dr. Vincent was named the 2016 Educator of the Year by University of Pennsylvania and received the Ohio State University Mortise College of Law Distinguished Service Award in 2012. He currently serves as Executive Director of the Civil Rights and Education Initiative and professor at the University of Kentucky. And I'm going to just turn it over to you, Dr. Vincent, to introduce our our uh, the overall structure of the audit and what your role will be at University of Kentucky.
Superintendent Black, thank you for that very gracious introduction. And moreover, thank you for being the convener of this very important work. I've really enjoyed getting a chance to meet with you and the team. And I can tell you that that your commitment definitely comes through. And I want to thank the opportunity to work with Doctors Cleveland and Akins as we assist the Paducah community in this work. And I know that with this and working together, we can address some of these issues. You know, I have to start with kind of a macro context because I think it's so critical. You know, we often talk about school districts being kind of the center of a community, right? And you have elected officials, you have teachers who often live in the community. It is the place where we develop the next generation of citizens who will contribute to our democratic society. And I'm often reminded and want to share that the Brown versus Board of Education decision that was rendered in 1954 said two things. One, of course, it explicitly overturned Plessy versus Ferguson and state-sponsored segregation in schools. But it went on to say something, something very profound. It said that perhaps the most important function of local and state government is education, that it's really the foundation of good citizenship. And no child should be expected to fully participate in our democratic society without an education. And so for me, if we're talking about the Paducah community, one of the most important things that we can do is one, of course, keep people safe, keep people healthy, and educate them so that they can fully participate in this experiment called democracy. I say that, and I don't need to remind anyone, but I say it because we saw just a few weeks ago how close we came to devolving into something that I never thought would happen. No, despite our disagreements, I thought that we would never see our hallmark of democracy be under attack. I bring that up because we have to turn the heat down as far as the rhetoric, as far as the way we interact with one another. I never said don't back down from accountability, right? You have to hold your school board members, your leaders, your teachers, your administrators accountable. That's different than, okay, we can't even come together. And so I applaud the Paducah community for coming together to address this critical issue around race and equity. We know that these issues are not controversial, except that they've become politicized. And just to name a couple of facts, the American Medical Association has announced that racism is a public health crisis. That is not in dispute. We also know the power of diversity. We know, and is through great research, that students that learn in a diverse learning environment have better outcomes than students that live in a segregated environment. And so there's so much that we can do. And so when we talk about diversity and when we talk about equity and racial justice, what we're really talking about is community, right? How can we come together and put aside our artificial differences to make Paducah the destination place, a place for young people to live. I applaud the 2 student members and to attract new people. And so that's kind of the macro points that I wanted to make. Getting down to the plan is exactly what has been laid out, which is we're doing an equity audit. And one of the things that becomes really important, because people often interchange equity and equality. I really applaud the school district, Will, for you, your team, for really talking about equity. Because what we're really talking about is how eventually everyone can get that education that the Supreme Court demanded in the Brown decision. And how can we do that in an equitable way? If we keep doing things, even with the systemic issues, equally, we're never going to get there. So how do we do that in equitably wrapped in justice, transparency, and accountability? So it's our hope that we can help with that effort. And so for us, we see three parts to this initial work. And then, I was a decent relay runner, do a smooth handoff to my esteemed colleagues so that they can continue this work, but always be involved and present. So the first part of the phase is to conduct an equity audit, a comprehensive and objective look based on best practices about what's going on, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and tasks that we can take on that will help Paducah move forward. And then with that, kind of develop an action plan. I think it's so important to do this. I'm reminded that not just too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, we honored the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he talked about the fierce urgency of now. So when we talk about action plans, we're talking about the work that we need to do right now. We don't have the luxury of waiting. We have to do that now. And if that was, true 58 years ago, it's true today. And then two, taking on the opportunity to implement. I'm reminded by a mentor when they say a training plan. He never liked the word training because he said you train monkeys. But I would say an education plan. So we can alter that well to address growth areas and opportunities. And again, put that in there because we all can learn. We all can develop. I constantly work on this. I know Doctors Akins and Cleveland, they do the same thing. We're all always educating ourselves. And no matter where you are, we can help you do this work. And then, of course, part of this, and we're doing this at the local level, state, regional, and national level, we need to review policy to make sure that it's being administered in an equitable way. And then finally, I think it's important that we implement and develop a minority recruitment plan. And I know Dr. Cleveland does this. He is truly a national expert on this issue of mentoring, particularly young men. And one of the things that I know we both do and is encourage young men to go into teaching, right? And I think that's something that we are looking to do. And so we do want to, get more young men, particularly young men of color, into teaching because we think we can make a difference. Let me stop there so that that I can turn over back to you, Superintendent Black, and we can hear from the other distinguished members of the team.
All right, great. Well, I want to introduce Roger Cleveland next. Dr. Cleveland is Director of Faculty Diversity and Development at Eastern Kentucky University. He has taught at Morehead State University, University of Kentucky, Middle Tennessee State, and Kentucky State University. In 2013, Dr. Cleveland received the P.G. Peebles Equity and Excellence Achievement Award from the Fayette County Equity Council for his work in improving local schools. In 2014, he was inducted into the Kentucky Civil Rights Hall of Fame. Dr. Cleveland is the Associate Director of the nationally recognized Black Males Working, or BMW Academy program in Lexington, Kentucky. And he is the president and owner of Millennium Learning Concepts Educational Consulting Company. And with Dr. Cleveland, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Roz Akins. Dr. Akins has served as an educator in the Fayette County School system for over 30 years as a teacher at Leestown Middle School and Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. She's also served as the Dean of Students at Leestown Middle School and Carter G. Woodson Academy. She was selected Middle School Teacher of the Year by the Fayette County Public School System. And recently, Dr. Akins received the Social Entrepreneur Award from the Lexington Leadership Foundation. In 2005, Dr. Akins founded the Black Males Working or BMW Academy. And now the BMW Academy has 4 sites and serves over 325 young men in kindergarten through 12th grade. Dr. Akins is also the founder of Carter G. Woodson Academy in Lexington. And so I'm going to turn it over first to Dr. Cleveland. And we're really excited that Dr. Vincent and Dr. Cleveland and Dr. Akins are up for working together on this equity audit and this and our action planning that's going to occur after the audit. Very excited about learning more from Dr. Cleveland and Dr. Akins in terms of what they did in Lexington with the BMW Academy, as well as how we might better align our local resources to serve our students of color more effectively. I know we have a lot to learn. We actually have visited Dr. Cleveland and Dr. Akins. Dr. Shively and I actually went up about 2 years ago, almost, maybe a year and a half ago. And we had a wonderful time learning from them about all their efforts. So Dr. Cleveland, I'd love to turn it over to you next.
Okay, thank you, Will. I appreciate the invite, and good to see you, Dr. Vincent. And I just want to start out saying that what Dr. Vincent mentioned about community is critical, and the work that he's going to do prior to us coming in is laying a foundation and giving a baseline of where Paducah Independent Schools is in a reference to equity, and on top of that, racial equity also. And so the findings that and report he's going to present to us really is going to be important, because our kind of role is he mentioned community, and we want the school district and the community working together, right? And so based on some of the findings that his team is going to provide for us, is when we're going to bring about this committee and then the entirety, a larger community, about, so what does this look like moving forward? Because he's going to give us the baseline. The real work, once he gets this done, is, between the district and the community. So we're going to facilitate some forums so people can give their perspective on not only what the audit bears out, but also things in general. And so that's going to be really important. And the community is critical in getting this work done. I've always believed that no school district is going to be successful without the broader community. It just doesn't happen. And so, there's a quote that says that a child only educated at school is an uneducated child, which means, home and the community is critical in ensuring that the child's successful. That don't mean the schools are not accountable and responsible for educating the child, but you have to have something in the community. So we're gonna have several forums for the larger community to not only just constantly focus on the problems, but we're gonna focus on solutions. And so how we can get those solutions and thoughts aligned with the report that Dr. Vincent is going to provide us. And so we're gonna listen to a lot of listening. And someone told me a long time ago that you're going to be successful, you listen, learn, then lead. And so we're going to listen first, but our focus is going to be about solutions and strategies, and how the broader community and the school district can work together. And we're going to flesh out issues around equity and racial equity, and make sure that race is not a barrier for students being successful in the school district. The second part is a lot of work, but fun work. And I'll let Ross talk a little bit about that. You mentioned it, Will, about BMW Academy. And that's basically where we're mentoring and have a mentoring program with a focus on leadership and academics for young men of color. And so our first part is really bringing about the community, this committee, larger community, and having sessions where we listen and then figure out how ways we can make sure that their voice is included into the work of the district, which is critical. And then the second part is how we can somehow, if we haven't had a program, a mentoring program systemically because we've been around the state quite a bit, and we've seen a lot of different programs they start and they're not sustained. They may have a year or two or whatever. We're in our 16th year working with young men of color, and you can go around the country and you won't find that. You'll see a lot of programs here and there, and Dr. Vincent probably can tell you he's been in a number of different places, but that's a rarity. And so, but it takes a commitment, and we have a strong relationship with our school district. And we have a strong relationship with the University of Kentucky. And so I'm gonna let Roz talk a little bit more about those two pieces. So our part is around bringing some synergy around the school district and the community to address student achievement, which is critical. And then the second part is starting a program specifically for males of color within the school district and also in the community. Roz?
All right, thanks, Dr. Cleveland. Will, thank you so very much for having us this evening, and to Dr. Vincent. We are excited and looking forward to working with the Paducah community and the school family there. I was blessed to come there a couple of years ago at the request of some faith-based leaders to talk about some of the things we were doing in Fayette County to make a difference in the lives of young men of color as well as all students. And I did an in-depth study of the scores, the MAP scores and the test scores, the K-Prep scores of students in the Paducah school system in preparation for coming for that presentation. And I think that's one of the things we're going to have to do is be very realistic. We're going to have those difficult conversations, because when it comes to the academic achievement gap, there is not only a gap, there's a gorge when it comes to some students. And so we are excited to come and help this school system, because if one kid is successful, we want every child to be successful, no matter what their race, no matter their ethnicity, no matter their socioeconomics. All of those factors play in having a strong school system. And as Dr. Cleveland said, it's got to be a strong commitment on behalf of the school, the community at large, and also the faith-based community and other nonprofit folks that you have there. And so what we did, and listen, you got to be creative and out of the box if you're going to deal with racial equity. If you keep doing the same old things, you're going to get the same results. And I think somebody far wiser than I said, that's called stupidity. And so you've got to be willing to have those difficult conversations. You're going to have to be willing to be creative and out of the box in order to make a difference. And I truly believe that you're there now and you're ready to make those changes. So what we did to address racial equity in our community 16 years ago, as Dr. Cleveland said, the gorge for us in our school system was African-American males. It was identified through the data. And so we started a Saturday program with 40 boys. And it was Dr. Cleveland, myself, and another young lady, just the three of us. And we called this program BMW, for Black Males Working, because we had this desire, and our mission is to educate, motivate, and to activate the potential for excellence that lies within every young man. What we found out, it was in them. They just needed to meet the right people to be able to get that potential out of them. And so that was 15 years ago. And we teach our young men the WELL principles there, to be well-behaved, well-mannered, well-dressed, well-read, well-spoken, well-traveled, and all of that leads to them being well-prepared. And so let's fast forward. We started with 40 boys 16 years ago. Today, we have 437 young men in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. We started with 6th through 8th grade and added a grade level every year. And so today, we have now 437 boys in kindergarten through 12th grade. We are blessed to have young men who have since graduated from college, who are now coming back and giving back to this program. And Will, you talked about teachers. We talked about having programs to grow teachers. Our two number one student interns who work with BMW and who do a lot of work with us. Both of them are in education. So we're trying to grow our own teachers out of the BMW that will come back into the Fayette County Public School system and give back. And so it's just being creative, being out of the box, being willing to roll up your sleeves and to get in there and to work. And so, as I said, we started out with 3 with the program. Today, we tap into fraternities, we tap into sororities, we tap into all kinds of organizations. And the 4th piece, you've got to have the support of your Chamber of Commerce. Our Chamber of Commerce helps us and identifies monetary resources that can help us with our program. And so those are some of the things that are the basics. If you get the school system, the community, the faith-based community, and the Chamber of Commerce, there's nothing you all cannot do. And this equity will show you those things, and you'll be able to make a difference in this community. And I'm looking forward to coming to help you guys, because I was excited 2 years ago and it kind of fell by the wayside. But now it's been rekindled, revived, and refreshed. And now let's just take it off and let's see the difference.
Will, do you mind if I just make a couple of brief remarks in response to Drs. Cleveland and Akins? First, wow, right? That's the first thing. What an amazing program to do this work for such a sustained period of time. So I applaud you both for this outstanding effort. There are 2 kind of frames that you share that I want to just emphasize. One is listening. One of the things we have to do, and if, no matter what the substantive outcomes are, if we have a better capacity to listen to one another, you listen to our young people, listen to people who may have different views, I think that you can make great progress with that. The other thing that I loved about what Dr. Akins and Cleveland had to say was these constituent groups. Will, we talked about the need to reach out to the faith community, which you did. I love what Dr. Akins talked about with the business community. One of the things that we know is that, for business to thrive, to have great economic empowerment, you need to have a strong system. Businesses are attracted, whether they're small businesses or big businesses, to a strong economy, free of as much strife as possible. One of the reasons why Charlotte became such a great city was because they integrated their schools at the county level, at the Mecklenburg school level, right? They talked about that. So that's A. And then Atlanta, right, adopted that slogan, a city too busy to hate, right? Now, no city is perfect, but it gives an example of how when business community, the faith community all come together, it's really powerful. So again, I want to thank Dr. Akins and Dr. Cleveland for taking those concepts and applying them for 16 years. Can we just take a moment? 16 years? That, a lot of folks, fold up because it's hard work, right? But for 16 years, that's pretty awesome. So again, great. Congratulations.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Vincent and Dr. Cleveland, Dr. Akins. We really appreciate and are excited about what you're getting ready to offer us as a community. I think at this time, if it's okay with you all, I'd like to allow people to ask questions to the panel here through the chat. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can here. If you just go toward the bottom of your screen to the chat, you should be able to type a question in, and then we will do our best to answer that. And I may, if it's depending on what the question is directed or what the subject of the question is, we may direct it to one or more of the panelists. So I'll just give it a chance for people to ask. Well, I don't see any questions. Oh, here's one. All right. We have a question from Ann Bidwell. Can you detail a few of the key components of the audit? What sort of data will you mine beyond achievements and test scores? For example, will you look into disciplinary measures? Dr. Vincent?
Yes, absolutely. So we do plan to look at a comprehensive array of data and categories. You've outlined them. I think achievement is absolutely critical. Are Black students and other students achieving at the right level? You know, we have to look at test scores. I have my own views about that, but I'm sure you do as well. So we certainly have to look at that. And you hit on one that's so very critical, which is the disciplinary, measures. We know that there's a disproportionate impact. I also think that suspensions in particular, we know the impact that will have. In addition to that, we're going to look at kind of mining down a little bit participation in advanced courses, because we know that those lead to more opportunities. We also will listen to students and parents, and I think that's something that is very important. To kind of continue with the questions, is timeline. It is our plan to move on to the audit in February. There's just in order to do this right, we want to make sure that we are handling the questions, because we're going to be talking to young people. We want to do that in a way that makes some sense. We anticipate that will take just a couple of months to be able to do that work. We anticipate the entire project to kind of go through the late summer, early fall. So that, I hope that's helpful. And I apologize if you can hear my wonder pets. They are evidently, I'm sure there's some squirrel or something being delivered to the door. So I apologize for that.
No problem. Okay, thank you. And so I think you addressed a question about timeline. Another question is, how and when will community members have the opportunity to participate?
About that. This is the start of that. We absolutely, and I shared this with Will, this can't happen unless we hear from the community. I am interested in hearing, again, all of the community members. I want to hear from parents. I want to hear from students, the professionals that do this work, the members in the community, essentially everyone, but with a particular emphasis on the folks who are directly involved and engaged right now. I am very excited about hearing from students, to hear what they have to say. One of the things that I know Drs. Cleveland and Akins would endorse is that we have to empower our students to take advantage of their education and not wait for that. So I'm excited about hearing from them. Obviously, parents, that's so critical, in that that enterprise. So listening will be an essential part of this work, which is why I wanted to amplify the points that Drs. Cleveland and Akins made about listening, and this is the start of that.
All right, thank you. Let's see, we have a question about how will you inform the community of your findings?
We are going to issue a report that we expect to be, public. We are, and it's going to, that it would be transparent. Because that was one of the other things we talked about with the board. That in order for this work to be credible, it has to be done in a transparent way. So we do plan for our report to be made public.
Okay, let's see. There's a question about how do we recruit the parents on the committee? And actually, in terms of recruiting everybody on the committee, there was a process through which we consulted with different community leaders, just garnering suggestions on potential committee members. And in the case of parents, we asked not only a few community members, but also we really asked principals as well as teachers and instructional assistants. We also needed a balance in between the schools as much as possible. That's part of the reason why we ended up actually going over the number of committee members that was suggested. It was 12 to 15, and I think we we ended up with 19. But we felt like we got it down as small as we could get it. Next question is, have you experienced working in communities where trust, has been compromised, or in other words, where there might be issues of trust around within the community before you even start?
Absolutely, and that is an unfortunate reality. And again, I know Doctors Cleveland and Akins would agree. I think the thing that you have to do with that case is, one, that's again that same ingredient about listening, about and then taking that information and doing something with it, right? I happen to, and again, you all know my history. I lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and in Austin, I still do virtually. But in Baton Rouge, they had not settled the initial Brown litigation when I was there in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so there was a great deal of mistrust. I think the thing that we were able to do is to do exactly what Dr. Akin said. We worked with community members, we worked there. The chamber played a huge role in helping to address these issues, and candidly doing a great deal of what we're doing right now. My role at that time was to ensure that LSU was involved. You talked about teachers and other educators and providing opportunities, but then also providing good research. And that's the other thing that we'll do in this audit, is that we'll connect these issues to good, reliable research and practice.
Here's another question. When auditing policies, and I know Dr. Vincent, there is part of the audit is a policy review. Will we be looking at the Board of Education, in terms of their practices and their following bylaws?
Yeah, what a great question. And, there's two parts of policy analysis. It is the actual policy itself. And I think it's always good to kind of review that. I think you need to do that as a matter of course. I think the bigger issue is, how do you apply the policies, right? So going back to suspensions and discipline, I think every school district has that on the books, right? But then how do you apply it? Do you apply it equitably, or does it adversely impact certain groups? You then can go a step further. What are some of the best strategies? Some of the things that we worked on in Austin with Title I schools was, how do we employ, for example, restorative justice, reparative justice, right? How do you make that happen? And I think that's a key part.
All right. Let's see. There's a question about, would you agree in order to achieve success, it is imperative that mutual trust be established? And we kind of already addressed the issue of trust, but all parties must trust that everyone's working toward the betterment of students and ultimately the community. Anything else on that issue in terms of, from your all's perspective?
I will only say that in reference to trust, that those who have concerns with the district from their past experience, that you validate their experiences, because perception is reality. And so you validate those experiences, and at the same do that, and at the same time try to move forward. But we can't avoid that step. You do have to validate people's experiences. They feel there's trust issues and things like that. Part of the work that Dr. Vincent is doing, and then the report and looking at the policies, potential policies around equity. And then also, one of the things I've done with schools before is that I helped them develop an equity scorecard. And so that's an instrument where you can address transparency, and whatever we say we're going to do, that's everywhere. It's on the district website. Every school has it. The community can see it or whatever. And so that a little mistrust is still there. you still have that accountability piece there. But the first part is validate people's experiences.
All right. Next question is, how important is support of local government and how do you solicit that support? And not there's Dr. Vincent. He's coming back. Dr. Vincent, I'm sorry. Let me read that again. The next question, how important is support of local government and how do you solicit that support?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I paraphrase the Brown decision, right? Because the unanimous Supreme Court said perhaps the most important function of state and local government is education, right? So if you follow that reasoning, I would say it's beyond the health and safety and welfare of your people. Education is the next important thing and should be funded and attended to in that way. So I would say education is a critical part of this. I think one of the public policy disasters in our country is that we spend more money imprisoning our young people than actually educating them. And I think we have to find ways, if we're talking about policy connection, we have to find a way to address that issue, not just in Paducah, but across the country.
Let me also add there, here in Lexington a few weeks ago, our mayor established what she called was the Mayor's Commission on Racial Equity. And one of the categories that she wanted, and I served as co-chair of that commission, and one of the main categories she wanted us to look at was education and economics. And, and the subcommittee came out of that with that there's got to be a great working relationship with the local government as well as the public school system and all entities that have private daycares or church kindergartens or whatever, because if we're not teaching the same universal kindergarten level of teaching, then that's why sometimes kids do not come to school prepared. And so that was something that our government, our local government looked at and has put a committee together to bring all these entities together to make sure everyone is teaching the same thing, whether they go to a private daycare, a private kindergarten, public kindergarten, or whatever. And so if we're all on the same page, so I think there's got to be a great working relationship between the government and the school system so that there will be a great school system, because a great school system is a reflection of a good government.
All right. The next question is one of the end goals to begin a program for males of color like BMW?
I think if the data comes out that there is a need for a program like this, and I've seen the data and there is a need for a program like this, that will be something that will be recommended. And if the community is willing to own that, there's no reason that the faith-based community and the parents and folks can come together and start a program like that will academically enhance the young men, academically, socially, emotionally, and do all those things for young men of color. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Akins, you make such a great point. Let me share what I know about kind of next steps. As you all know, in 2016, President Obama initiated the My Brother's Keeper initiative out of the White House to provide best practices on how around mentoring, particularly for young men and boys of color. Now President Biden is committed to bringing that back and making that a White House initiative. And so I see real activity in this area. And so our efforts really align with those national efforts to help implement best practices around mentoring young men and boys of color. And let me also say, of course, the same effort needs to happen for young women and girls. So right. I think let's stay tuned for that.
And let me piggyback on that. The BMW Academy was recognized by the Obama Foundation 2018 as one of the most outstanding mentoring programs in the nation.
Yeah, and I was, if you weren't going to say, Dr. Akins, I was definitely going to share it. And so we also had a program that was recognized as well. So I really do think there's some great opportunities there.
Yeah.
Well, let me just mention something else about starting program, I only advise, and Roz knows this, that don't start it if you're not going to go, the long haul.
That's right.
The last thing our students need is be people in and out, and instability into that. And so I think I was talking to Will about a month and a half ago, and it may sound really strange to possibly this committee, but I had said that I prefer you start a program outside of the school district and partner with the school district.
Mm-hmm.
And because we did that, we've had 3 superintendents and our program's still there because it started in the community, but we have a strong, positive relationship with the school district. And so if you start something that is not tied directly to the community, then, we'll get the lottery and move to, Hawaii, and other leadership in the central office may be gone. And then someone else may come in and say, you know what, we don't need this program. But if it's in the community and anchored in the community, you can always partner with the leadership in the school district. And I don't know what school district is going to say we don't want to partner when you're working with the group of students who are occupying the basement of achievement. So why would you not want to work with them? We never had a problem with Fayette County wanting to work with us and our students because they want the students to be successful also. So having that strong partnership between the community and school district when you start this is really critical. And it takes some work. I mean, you got to be committed. We need people in the communities really committed, working with these young men and women.
Here's a question. What other programs do you have for other minority students, and I wonder if that's minority groups, or is it all based on data representation? What if a group of students is underrepresented to the data, and specifically in our community, for instance, we have a smaller representation or proportion of Hispanic students, but the Hispanic students make up about 10% of our student population. So still a sizable group. We have other groups that are maybe 1 or 2%. How do we work for equity for all different minority groups?
Yeah, well, let me take a quick hit at that, and then I'm gonna turn it over to my colleagues. In my earlier in my career, I worked as a civil rights attorney. And I bring that up to say that race remains the largest single category of discrimination. So race, for so many reasons, matters. At the same time, there are other issues facing the community. So when you talk about civil rights and equity, there are other groups. Justice Thurgood Marshall, though he was the greatest kind of legal advocate for racial justice, was just as keen about gender, persons with disabilities, ethnicities, and fought so hard for those issues. And so my my ending comment is, it's not either or, it's both and. And so, for example, My Brother's Keeper was not just for Black young men and boys, but it was for all students who felt that they were underrepresented. I think socioeconomic status, particularly in a state like Kentucky, I think there's some issues there as well.
And let me share with you that the BMW Academy, we have Hispanic males, we have Caucasian males, and when we started Carter G. Woodson, because parents are not as concerned about the race part, they are wanting what program you're offering that's going to better my young man. And so they have bought in to what we're offering their student with the tutoring, with the enrichment, and all the different programs. It doesn't bother them at all that the majority of the students are African American. So let me go over to Carter G. Woodson now, which is the school part that BMW gave birth to. Carter G. Woodson is probably 10% Hispanic, and we're probably 3% Caucasian now. And here's what's interesting. I got a call that we have a big Martin Luther King Day that one of the fraternity sponsors. And they have an essay contest. And I mean, every year it's always an Asian student who wins it, or a student that goes to a gifted program at a school, Well, I got the call this year that finally a kid from Carter G. Woodson Academy won first place and won the scholarship, one of our sixth graders. We were so excited, but guess what? It was one of our Caucasian students that won. And so his parents have him in the program. They don't miss a beat, and they just appreciate all the programs and what we offer their young men to be better young men, and all the exposure.
Sorry, I was muted. One more question here. How many communities have you or are you working in?
Dr. Cleveland, I'll let you shoot with that, then I'll come next.
Are they referring to this kind of work or in general? I guess I'm trying to, because that could be, could be from Texas to Virginia. In Kentucky, actually, I guess, you can't be a prophet in your own land. So that's probably 90% of my work is probably in larger districts in other states. But to answer that question, how many and have, hundreds. I've been in this game for a while, so I've been working with a lot of, she said this kind of work with racial equity, probably about 10 or 11 different districts, most of them outside of Kentucky, but I've done a lot of, Jefferson County is probably the leading district in dealing with racial equity right now. And so I was working with them from kind of day one when they developed their racial equity policy 4 or 5 years ago. They have a racial equity plan. They have a racial equity scorecard. Every school has to do a racial equity plan. So in Kentucky, probably about 4 or 5 districts, but very few districts are actually dealing with racial equity, very few.
For me, I am working with 4 other school districts, but with very consistent work. So that's what we're doing. I have a team of other faculty as well as a staff and graduate students.
And right now, I'm only working with one other school district.
Yeah, and over time, I probably worked with 50 to 100 school districts.
That's probably about the same with over time, probably about the same as Dr. Vincent. Like I said, a lot of them are a lot of districts outside of Kentucky, but some in Kentucky, Warren County, Covington, Jefferson County, Fayette. So, but over time, quite a few districts. We're not new at this, if we can say that.
Well, there's definitely a lot that we can learn. I really appreciate your time to all the panelists here. Thank you also to everyone attending out there. If you have more questions, I would love to hear from you via email. And we are getting excited about getting started here. So we will continue to update the community on our efforts through our website and through Facebook. We're creating a section for racial equity on our website where we can update the work of how the committee is going, how the audit is going, how the policy review, and then the action planning. So we'll be trying to communicate on a regular basis. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Any other comments from the panel?
No, Will, again, just thank you. And I'm so excited about working with Drs. Cleveland and